Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and Drew Foster here, keeping you up to date with all things NFL. Last episode, we gave our rankings of some of the offensive positions, and now it's defense time. You know what they say, defense wins championships. So we got to talk about the defenders. Before we get into it, though, Frosty, how are you doing today?
Yeah, a little sore still. I had a baseball game last night and I'm feeling it today. I took one trip around the bases and my legs are basically numb.
Glover, are you feeling sore, or are you in
Definitely not.
prime podcasting condition right now?
I have not been out there running around like that. I'm mentally sore because I was up late last night finishing up the editing of the last episode and woke up this morning to hopefully having the export done. And it said 20 set or 52 hours, and I was like, oh, this is fun. So we'll figure that out. But yeah, so besides that, I've been good.
All right, all right. Well, where do we want to start? Let's start with the big boys up front, the defensive linemen. We're just gonna be doing edge. Just gonna be doing edge today, and differences at the top for you guys, right at the top. So let's. I mean, I have a certain feeling on this, but like I you got to make the case for Micah Parsons over Miles Garrett to me, Frosty, because I mean you're wearing the Cowboys hat. So do you is there bias in this pick, or you
Uh,
or what's going on here?
So I think there might be a little bit of bias. I think purely as a pass rusher, I think Myles Garrett is a better pass rusher than Micah Parsons. But as a defensive player, I think Micah Parsons is better. He's significantly better if the Cowboys drop him back into coverage. They do sometimes. He's more versatile. He can move around into a lot of different positions. I just think Micah Parsons he's the most complete edge rusher in football right now.
Like, yeah, I think that's fair. Like that was the thing when I was looking at Micah Parsons. Like, do I like you could count him as an edge, you count him as a coverage linebacker. Like he can do it all. But
Yeah.
I think I'm ranking him as an edge. As an edge, I'm going to take Myles Garrett. If we're dropping him back into coverage, I'm not even questioning. I'm taking Micah Parsons over probably anyone else on my list. Like not even a shadow of a doubt. I'm taking Micah Parsons. But I think Myles Garrett's just so dominant. He's an absolute wrecker. He's a game wrecker. And I think, yeah, obviously he's not as good in coverage, but I think that he's just the most dominant player off the edge. And I think he's due for a defensive player of the year.
I think both of them are.
Oh yeah, both of them are. Yeah, I guess Micah Parsons not one either.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally go with Garrett. Just his I believe his so he had a 27.3 pass rush win rate last season, which was one of the highest marks ever. So I mean, yeah, it's just kind of pick what you want, right? Like, I mean, who so Micah Parsons does more, but who would you guys say just impacts the game more generally? Just because Micah does more doesn't mean he's impacting the game as much as a Miles Garrett. Because I mean, I would say Garrett draws the most since Aaron Donald's been out of the league. Garrett's drawing the most double teams out of anybody, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's interesting what you feel because they play the same position, but again, very different players.
Yeah, like they play the same position in very different ways. Like you can play the edge position in so many different ways. There's a lot of different guys who aren't just
Garrett
natural.
can slide inside as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, like it's really tough. Like I do think they are so close, but I feel like Miles Garrett just I think he's just more of a wrecker off the edge. I think he has that factor to him more than a Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons is a more complete player, but I think in terms of like just making a crazy like making the biggest impact on the game, I think that has to go to Miles Garrett because I feel you have to game plan around him a little bit more. I think Micah Parsons, since he's not always rushing the edge, I think you can. I don't think he's as dominant as a pure rusher. I think that's sort of where I'm going with this. I think like Miles Garrett is so much more just unstoppable.
I'd agree with that. Like I think as a pure pass rusher, I do think Myles Garrett is probably the best edge rusher in the league. I just I think Parsons brings a lot more different things than Myles Garrett brings
Yeah.
than on the field, and to me, I value that more. So that's why I have my Micah Parsons in my number one spot.
All right, all right. Make the case for either. And then I think we can all agree that it's like a depending on where you want to tier it out, there's a top four to some degree, you know. So, you guys both TJ Watt and Nick Bosa, at 3 and 4, which I think is perfectly how it should be. I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find, somebody who says different. Like maybe if you want to say Bosa over Watt, but I think any strong feelings on this kind of next group of guys. You guys also have Max Crosby at 5, who I don't know if you'd put him in that tier, but he's knocking on the door, fellas.
Yeah, I think he is close. Like I think it is the top four are their tier, but I think Max Crosby could be in that group after this season. Like I think he's gonna finally have some support on that line in Las Vegas. That's gonna really help him put up better numbers, I think.
It's the kind of like the way that we talked about Devonte Adams being in his own tier of receivers. Max Crosby's kind of in his own tier of edge rushers right now. I don't think he's quite on that TJ Watt, Nick Bosa level, but I also think he's pretty clear of Aiden Hutchinson and Josh Allen. So I think Max Crosby pretty much just has to be in the 5 spot. I do think after this year, there's a chance that he can move up there though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you got somebody like Christian Wilkins coming into the fold now, it's if we were doing interior D-line rankings, he'd be up there as well. So, as we move down the list here, Joshua Hines Allen, gotta get that, or Josh Hines Allen, I should say. Yeah. Along with Aiden Hutchinson, s pretty interchangeable. I'd say you guys both have it flip-flopped, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's really anything to quibble with. Quibble?
I don't know. I think no squabble over. Is that it? Squabble? I don't know.
Squabble.
Whether we're quibbling, quabbling, or squabbling,
Got
I
an
think
English
it's
class here.
fine. That's fine how you guys have it. Interesting in your last three here for each of you guys, six different names,
Yeah.
for each of you guys. So, uh, which I think is when we're doing these rankings, something I've found out is there's just it feels like there's a lot of hodgepodge of guys after you get to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like a lot of positions we've been doing, there's been just that a whole bunch of tier group guys, and for people to take like jumps, like someone like Frosty, who I want you to talk about, Jalen Phillips, who I mean, if he's healthy and he's playing, like he can make a jump, and then Glover, like you got like a Thibodeau in there who, I mean, you guys had mentioned, we should probably mention again in this episode. It's you guys were basing it off of more of last year and projecting for this year. So those are two guys that you guys are seeing that could solidify top 10 guys.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, Phillips is tough because I thought about where to put him, but the health is such a concern. And Thibodeau's already made that jump to an elite edge rusher. He had 14 and a half sacks last year. Like for me, that's just like I think if healthy, Phillips will make the jump into that grouping. I can't do it until I see it. He still doesn't have a season with more than 10 sacks. I think he still needs to make that jump. And I don't think he's quite there yet. I think I saw like I think Thibodeau again, he's also due for a bigger year this year, even with Brian Burns now to help support him and Dexter Lawrence still there. Like I'm a big fan of Thibodeau, and I think he's kind of going under the radar because of how good Hutchinson's been in that draft class. But I love what Thibodeau's done.
I do. Thibodeau is probably my number 11, to be completely honest. And so it seems kind of hypocritical now saying it, but the reason why I kept Matt Judon out of my list was because of health, and then I have Jalen Phillips on it. But I think part of the Matt Judon thing is age too. When you're hurt at an older age, it's much more unlikely that you're going to come back and start playing full seasons again consistently. Last year was the first time in his career that Jalen Phillips has missed games. So I'm willing to put the money on him staying healthy, and I think a breakout year is due for him coming in this year.
Yeah, like injuries definitely played into Matt Judon too, because I kind of in the same boat where I put Matt Judon on, but I didn't put Phillips on because of injuries. But like the thing with Judon is I think the fact that I've seen it, I think that's what I'm like. Last year he played 4 games, he had 4 sacks in 4 games. And the year before that he had 15 and a half sacks. I think he was top 5 in sacks that year and was in the running for like he was a Pro Bowler the past 4 years actually as a fully healthy linebacker. So like I think the fact that it's been consistency for him that I can trust that he'll be able to do it, and he's already done it. So I'm not projecting a jump. He's already made the jump, just projecting him to get back to that jump, that point.
Yeah, I will say Jalen Phillips, real quick on Phillips, one of the better run defenders on the edge in the league. One notable omission from you guys, Khalil Mack. Come on. No love to Big Mac. Uh man, 17 sacks for him last season, which was just phenomenal. Like it almost came out of nowhere. I mean, but hey, he was healthy and he looked great, and that was with Bosa missing games, I believe, as well. So I mean, is it just the projection part for you guys on why Mac is left out? Because, I mean, if we're just looking at the raw numbers from Mac to say even just like a Jalen Phillips or, even like a Bradley Chubb or a Montez Sweat, I mean, like Mac blows him out of the water.
My thing with Mac, he's 33. And the year before this, it was his first full yearly season in LA. He only put up 8 sacks.
Yeah.
Like this year feels Mac is an elite edge rusher, like in terms of like you're looking at their careers for sure. Like his Oakland and Chicago days were unmatched. But I think this year is more of a fluke. I think it's a fluky year. I don't think he's gonna match that this year. I don't think he's gonna come particularly close. Like, and he was injured the year before that. Was pretty good. He had 6 sacks in 7 games, and then but besides that, that was his first 10 plus sack season since 2018. I don't trust him to keep it going because I think he's at that age. And I honestly, it's amazing he did this. He did have one game with 5 sacks, which is pretty crazy, and I think that does inflate it a little bit. But I can't project him to do that again this year.
I was gonna bring up both those things, but he didn't have double-digit sacks the last 4 years in a row, and then randomly just pops off for 17 sacks and the 5 sack game. Like I do think that inflated his numbers a little bit. I still think he's a dominant pass rusher. Don't get me wrong, but I think the guys that I have in there right now, I think have a higher ceiling, and I think they have the chance to pass him because I just don't think he's Khalil Mack's gonna be able to replicate what he did last year.
Yeah.
One of the better run defenders, I will say, from the edge
Yeah.
spot as well. Any major, any big thoughts, major thoughts on the defensive edges here for you guys? I mean, it's like I said, it's pretty cut and dry to some degree at the top. You can quibble, quabble, squabble with whatever you want when it comes to a couple guys and flipping, but I mean, relatively pretty standard list from you guys, I would say. No hot takes to start the episode off today.
Nothing too crazy yet.
Yeah. No, nothing yet.
Well, let's get to a hot take because Glover, what are we doing?
Are we going to
Let's
where I think we're going?
let's move to the linebackers
I
Hey,
because
have
you
to.
knew this was coming.
I have to. I just have to. I do love Roquan Smith. I think he makes the people he plays with better. I think he's just a big leader on a defense. I think he I can't in good conscience go and put Fred Warner over Roquan Smith. I've been arguing it for years. I'm gonna keep arguing it. I think Roquan Smith has a larger effect on the players playing around him on a defense than Fred Warner is. I think he is that kind of leader. I think he's that kind of player where he makes everyone else around him better. I think he's I think Fred Warner's probably a little bit better in coverage, but I think Roquan's definitely a better run stopper without a doubt in my mind. And he's a lot better at rushing the passer when he's called in on blitzes. And that kind of physicality he plays with, he's just so much better at just running people over when it comes time. I'm just gonna go Roquan. I don't think it's like I don't it's obviously a 1-2. It's obviously the 1-2, but I'm going Roquan and I'm just gonna stand by that.
I Fred Warner's been the linebacker in football for the last like 6 years, probably. I just I can't go against him. He's anchored the Niners defense has been elite for like over half a decade now. He's he is better in coverage. I wouldn't take him as a better run stopper than Roquan Smith, but I don't think the drop off is really that massive. And I would say Fred Warner is the best field general on defense in all of football.
I'm trying to hear you out, Glover. I'm trying, but I I
Like
don't know. I
I
don't
knew
know.
I was gonna be the minority here. I know we've had this discussion for the past like 6 months. It's been a long discussion. So I know I'm in the minority, but I'm gonna hold my ground on Roquan Smith. I just what he did when he came to Baltimore, that defense was struggling. Like it was talented, but man, when he got traded over, he just the mentality. He's an absolute dog. I just love the way he plays. He watching him, like he just the everything about him makes me it reminds me of the way like you see a Ray Lewis, like the pregame hype up, that just he makes you want to run through a goddamn wall for this guy. Like he really is that, like he's just that kind of leader for the defense, and he really makes the team around him better, and
We're,
that's what I'm doing there.
I
we're
feel
not
like he,
comparing Roquan Smith to
No,
Ray
no,
Lewis, right?
obviously Ray Lewis is insane, but it's like this is like you have CJ Mosley in between, but this is the best linebacker the Ravens have had since Ray Lewis,
I
and
mean,
he has some around
I
him.
I do want to challenge you on a couple of things because I mean, with Warner, he had a career high in interceptions last season, and yeah, clearly, I mean, you guys both agreed. I mean, Warner completely eliminates the middle of the field. I mean,
Yeah,
come on, like he one of the best coverage linebackers in the entire NFL. I mean, Warner's even putting up better sack numbers than Roquan Smith when they send him in pressure too. So it's over the last couple of years at least. So
Only last year. Every other year it's been Roquan. Only last season did Fred Warner have more.
well, they tied in 2022, did they not?
No, 2022,
Or he sorry,
he
with
had two
Baltimore
for
going, he
Baltimore,
had
but he had
two.
2.5 for Chicago.
Okay, so I'm not conceding that like Roquan does rush the passer better, but I guess the point stands that I don't think it's a drop off when it comes to rushing the passer, even defending the run. Like I think Roquan's better in certain areas, but I mean just when it comes to taking away the middle of the field, like and we're talking about like anchoring defenses and whatnot. And yes, Roquan took a step up in his game when he got to Baltimore. The defense took a step up when he got to Baltimore. Warner's been there and has been anchoring this team for how long now? So I'm interested. Who's going to be playing alongside Smith this year in Baltimore? Can you
And
remind me of Trenton Simpson?
got
So
to pick today. You got to pick today
they
in preseason.
they need Roquan Smith to he's going to be kind of the solo dog to some degree
Yeah.
there with Queen leaving. So it's we'll see. Big year for Smith to really challenge for this top spot. Uh After that, Glover, I love the Jeremiah Owusu Karamoa. I we said it in the Browns preview, I believe. I think I made a you guys called it an outlandish claim of me saying
Oh.
that the Joe it was so I think it must have been Frosty because I don't see Joker in his top
Yeah, I'm
10.
a little shocked to not see JOK at all in the list. I love his game.
this might be the most different lists I think we will have this entire time.
The thing I found when I was going through this list, like, is it was obvious it was Roquan and Warner, those are the top two. And then after that, it's like, man, there is not a lot of elite linebackers in the NFL. Because I remember when you brought that up, Miles, I was thinking of JOK as more of a borderline top 10 guy. But there's just no other guys I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have him. The linebackers in the NFL, the teams that have them. Otherwise, they don't have good linebackers. Like you got CJ Mosley. I thought about putting CJ Mosley on here, but that would make it three teams here with two players on this list if I had put CJ Mosley in here because Patrick Queen was with Baltimore last year with Roquan, Warner and Greenlaw, Mosley and Quincy Williams. The teams that value linebacker value it high, and otherwise people just don't care, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Frosty, let's go to you here. Any from your list perspective, was there anything that really because I see you have Matt Milano up there, and that's a name that Glover does not have in his. So just talk me through about your kind of process going through the linebacker. It is a pretty volatile position, I would say. So just take me through your rankings a little bit.
I mean, going back to Milano's last full season, he was by PFF the fourth best linebacker in football in 2022. I I have faith that he was off to a great start last season before he got hurt. I have faith that he's going to be able to come back and he's going to be able to make close to the same impact that he was doing before, if not become even better. He's going to become even more of a general on this defense with all the pieces that Buffalo lost in the offseason. I think it's going to be Matt Milano's time to shine this year. I think he's going to grab it and run with it.
Problem is he's already hurt. There's
Yeah,
already it's because
that's what scares me.
that's why I didn't put him on my list because he injured his bicep a couple weeks ago, and the report is that it's too early to tell if he can even return during the season. So I was like, I can't put a guy in this list who might not play at all this season because I don't know what he's gonna do. He is great, and I definitely thought about it because he is that good, but the fact that he's not going to play, he might not play. I couldn't put him on here if we're projecting, kind of doing a little bit of projection too.
So Glover, no Demario Davis, I just noticed.
Yeah, I that was not. There's a lot of tough ones on this list, man. I really didn't know where to go with a lot of different guys. I think Demario Davis is one of my like he was right there with Milano. I didn't know who to put where, and I wanted to give certain guys their flowers. I'm just kind of maybe this is a bit of projection for the fact that Davis is getting up there in age. He's 35 now. It was similar with CJ Mosley, who I also have this on this list. Is a little bit of I think this the slowdown. Like I think it's getting to that point where you're going to start to see a regression a little bit in these kinds of guys. But he was great last year, and it was I
He
really
was
did.
fantastic, and he's
I,
been since arriving in New Orleans, like he's been.
yeah, he
It
so
actually
maybe
shocked me looking at the numbers. I was like, oh wow.
yeah, maybe I should have put him a little. He deserved a shout out on the bottom near the bottom of the list there where I could have put him in. I don't know. There was a lot of guys I really wanted to put in that I think, but I do think you go three down to like 15 and they're all like pretty close. Like CJ Mosley, TJ Edwards is another guy I thought about putting on this list. There's a lot of different names that are in that sort of right range, right outside the top 10.
I will say there's a couple of young guys that I'm like, man, I think everybody loves Nick Bolton. I mean, if you just watch any Chiefs game and pay attention to the defense, like Bolton's everywhere. Man, he's somebody who he's already taken a step, but like I could really see him cementing himself as like the third best linebacker in the NFL, right? Like you said, like you guys
Open.
said, there's lots of opportunity here for young
It's
guys like
wide open.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, like Joker to like Nick Bolton. We'll see what Patrick Queen does in Pittsburgh. I leaned a bit more towards like Queen was maybe a little bit of a product of the system of playing in that Baltimore defense beside one of the best linebackers in the NFL, behind one of the best fronts in the NFL as well. But I mean, maybe to wrap this up here, Glover, you can give your Patrick Queen take because you guys both have him sneaking into the top 10, which I think is fair.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit in our AFC North preview, but it's going to be a telling year for Patrick Queen because I don't know what you're going to see. It depends what role the Steelers try and use him in, but they don't really have a ton of other linebacker support. But I don't. Queen had a really good year last year, so I could not put him in here because he was amazing. And he's young and he's got lots of promising athletic skills, and he does do a lot of things good. But mentally is where I don't know if he can really truly be a Mike linebacker. So we'll see if he can prove that wrong. We'll see if he can prove that it wasn't just Roquan in the system. And it's more a matter of did Roquan make him look better or did Queen learn from Roquan? We'll see how it turns out, but we're really not going to tell until the season starts for Pittsburgh.
Similar to like kind of the tight ends. Like the tight ends are kind of coming around now with all this young talent. I mean, these last couple of drafts, there hasn't been like a crazy amount of linebackers coming in. Like this draft cycle, it doesn't look like there's gonna be like any like studs. You know what I mean? Like in 2023, like I mean, I like Jack Campbell. So maybe there are some, maybe some diamonds in the rough kind of come in, but like we said, it's such a volatile position, right?
Yeah. I feel like teams, like we said, teams don't value this position, it seems like. So no one's taking him with a first round pick.
That is true. All right. Um, Corners again. Geez, you guys have a difference at the top again. A
Oh, yeah.
difference at the top again for all positions so far. Maybe we'll have to see if that trend continues at safety, but at corner here, it's the similar, geez, it's just a top two. Just like the edge, there was a top two. Linebackers was a top two, and now corners, there's arguably, these two guys in the tier of their own, Sauce Gardner and Pat Surtain. I believe we had this conversation a little bit touching. It was either in what with the Broncos or the Jets in the AFC West or East preview. Sauce versus Sertan, and I feel like there's a lot of divide, and I feel like we could have this conversation for a while. We'll try to keep it short and sweet, but who wants to make Frosty? You've been sitting patiently over here. Make the case for Sauce, even though I would lean on Sauce. So let's hear the sauce.
so for Since tw the start of 2022, I just have a graphic in front of me from PFF. It's like one of the most ridiculous cornerback graphics I've ever seen for Sauce Gardner. His PFF coverage grade is first, catch percent allowed second, passer rating allowed first, yards per coverage snap first, coverage snaps per target second, coverage snaps per reception second, forced incompletions second, percent of targets that are a first down or touchdown, he's first, and percent of targets that are a 15 plus, he's second, and that's 1.03%. Like this guy is just the depth. He shuts down the entire side of the field, and it's nothing against Pat Surtain because Sauce Gardner might be off to one of the best, if not the best, starts to a career by a cornerback in NFL history. And I think Pat Surtain is an absolutely unbelievable player. I just think Sauce Gardner has the edge on him right now.
Yeah, like I think if you look at these guys, you look at the numbers they've been putting up in their first 2 to 3 years, if they keep on this pace and they keep these trends going, odds are we're looking at two of the best corners ever. Like they'll be Hall of Famers, they'll be two of the best we've ever seen because I definitely agree. I don't think there's not been really any corner. I don't think who's had a start to their career that, as good as Sauce Gardner. I don't think any corner has ever started their career with two first team All Pros. Like it is amazing. I think I'm leaning Surtain because I think he does a little bit more with a little bit less. I think that's the big thing is obviously Sauce is just a stud and he locks it down. But I think the fact that Surtain's able to go pace per pace with him with you know pass defenses and the yards allowed and all that sort of stuff while playing on a team with no help, that a defense that sucks, and he's still being able to be dominant. I think it's telling of just how good Pat Surtain is. I think Pat Surtain's also a bit of a better ball hawk. Like Sauce Gardner is so much more physical off the line, especially, but Surtain's better at making plays on the ball and getting picks going the other way.
I just Sauce just doesn't even get targeted. Like
Yeah.
he's just not even
Yeah.
getting targeted. Like he didn't put up a crazy amount of like Sauce has never really put up a crazy amount of interceptions in his since he's been in the league. Like I believe how many does he have in his
Two.
career? Two. He didn't even have one last year. I mean, Pat Surtain similarly, I mean, Surtain's only had three in the last 2 years as well, but it's just both these guys just don't even get targeted anymore. It's just like they just completely blank. It's honestly fun to watch. If you're a big corner enthusiast, because it's just so hard to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, yeah, both these guys, like, both under 60% completion percentage when thrown to, like, yeah, according to Pro Football Reference, like, it's just that they're just unmatched. They're unmatched.
It- It's I don't know if there's another position in football other than Patrick Mahomes at quarterback that you can say like these guys are so much better than the next person down. Like, and that's no disrespect to whoever is the third best corner in football, but these guys are just on another like you're going against if they retire, like if their trajectory continues this way, probably two top five corners of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that corner in football because there's some debate about that as well. I want to hear the Jair Alexander case. He's uh I feel like he's a bit of an interesting player. So Steve, let's start with Jair here. And I mean, Glover, you're not like it's not like you have him below. You just have Terrell right above him. But um, let's talk about Jair Alexander because there was a point in time before these two really took off where I mean Alexander had a case to be the best corner in the league.
Yeah, from 2020 to 2022, he was the best corner in the league. He was a 91.9 PFF grade for those 3 years. He needs to stay healthy. I saw what he did to the Cowboys in the playoffs, and that might be part of the reason why I have him at number three because he's another guy that can just shut down the side of the field. It doesn't matter if he's in man, it doesn't matter if he's in zone, it doesn't matter. He can cover any way that you want him to, and he can play anywhere on the field. I going back to his it was only 2 years ago that he was the best corner in football before the takeoff of Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner. So I give him a bit of an edge. He's if he can shake off the injury concerns, I think he's a clear-cut third best corner in the league.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think for me, I'm just going off of the recency in terms of Trey Alexander's had two two of the last three seasons he's been hurt, and AJ Terrell's been just unreal these past two seasons in terms of he's starting to get that treatment if he doesn't get targeted very much at all. He's allowed less. He's had a better completion percentages when targeted than Jair Alexander the past. I think it was the past 2 years. Definitely last year he was significantly better when Jair played. Um, yeah, the past three seasons it's been a better completion percentage when targeted when it comes to AJ Terrell, and I think AJ Terrell is sneakily close to get into that elite level of, the elite tier, but he did a bit of a downer year as opposed to the year before that where he was because before, you had the extra year of Sauce and the extra year of Pat Surtain's elite level. I think there was Terrell was in that conversation with those guys and Jair Alexander and a couple other guys, but I really do just love what I've seen from AJ Terrell. He's developed so well. Like he didn't have a great rookie year, but he's taken a step up every year and he's gotten targeted less and less and he's knocking down more passes and he's just been really steady the past 3 years.
For me, when I was making this list, it's kind of the opposite of the linebacker list. When I was making the linebacker list, it was like I felt like I was putting guys too high, but it was because I don't think there was the same amount of high-end guys. For corners, 8 seems hilariously low for AJ Terrell. But then like looking at the names above him, I can see the argument for him being anywhere up to 3.
Yeah.
But there's just so many good corners in the NFL right now.
And there was a lot of guys I had to take off this list that I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm not gonna put these guys on this list. This feels wrong. Like there's a lot of really good corners, really good young corners too. I feel like a lot of the top corners are young. You Surtain and Sauce and Terrell's still young, and Jalen Johnson just got paid. Trent McDuffie, Tariq Woolen, Devon Witherspoon. I love Christian Gonzalez. So many talented young cornerbacks that are coming up in the league.
Derek Stingley Jr.
I knew you were gonna say it. I have him down there. I knew you were gonna bring him up. I was waiting for that.
No, if I mean I'll always defend Stingley Jr. I'll even defend the pick. If you look at some of the advanced metrics from last year, Stingley was right alongside Sauce. So we'll see. Stingley he had a shaky rookie year, and then he just absolutely balled out last season, and he's looked pretty good so far in camp. I think again, just another one of these young guys who's gonna really um make some noise. And yeah, there's just a lot of guys like I mean, one who I didn't expect to see, well, honestly, I should have expected it with Frosty was Deron Bland sneaking into the top 10. I was thinking maybe you'd throw Diggs in there. You didn't even throw Diggs in there. You just went full Deron Bland mode on us.
I mean, 9 picks and 5 touchdowns. Like at some point, like I get the boomer bust thing. I understand that. But he had over double the amount of touchdowns as the second place defensive player. 5 pick, like realistically, if you're in a tie game with like 30 seconds left, having a ball hawk like like Deron Bland is a blessing as long as you can have a safety behind him. Deron Bland as a corner, yes, he's not as shut down as the AJ Terrell or the Sauce Gardner, the Pat Surtain, but he is the best ball hawk in football as of right now. And it's not even, I don't even think it's close. Like the 5 touchdowns is insane in and of itself. The 9 interceptions last year in 15 games, like the guy was an absolute animal
Okay,
in the secondary.
but like how sustainable is this? Because according to PFF, there's some numbers that you might want to cover your ears, Frosty. So Bland has allowed 1.35 yards per cover snap over the last 2 years, which ranks 111th among qualifiers, and his over 1,300 yards allowed is 11th most over that span as well. So yeah, like you said, it's big risk it for the biscuit alongside his corner teammate. And I don't know. We'll see. We will see, but it just doesn't seem sustainable for what he did. Like, I mean, gosh, there's some luck into getting all these pick sixes, right? Like, there's definitely some luck, but when it goes your way for a player like that, like there's an argument, I guess, to see like he's providing top 10 value.
I
At
would
least he did
argue
last
that
year. He did last year.
I I would argue that I don't know if there's a corner that can get you back into a game more than Deron Bland can. If you're down two possessions in the fourth quarter, you need a turnover. Turnovers win football games a lot of the time.
True, but there might also not be a cornerback that can have the game blow back open again in your face more than Deron Bland. In terms like if you need a pick, you need a turnover, and he allows a 75-yard completion the other way, and now you're down 2 scores.
That's the whole style,
So
baby.
Like
That's
that's what it is. Like
Cameron
I
it's
mentality.
the boomer bust.
dude, I lived this with Marcus Peters at the end of his days in Baltimore. He was the ball hawk who got burnt once a game. And it's tough to judge. And having two of them with Trayvon Diggs also being similar to that is like Trayvon Diggs is I have him as my 11. I think Trayvon Diggs is better than Deron Bland because he isn't as there's not as much of a chance of him just like getting burnt and blown wide open. Like his coverage is totally blown. But I don't know. I can't. He allowed like according to Pro Football Reference, he allowed 440 air yards and over 200 yards after the catch this past season. Like I can't put him in the top 10. I can't until and it is it's an outlier. I mean he's young still, so I want to see maybe take some steps in more of a lockdown area maybe this coming season.
Yeah, and I like I think he will. I mean, he's he's got the most picks in the league over the last 2 years. Like I just the turnovers are just I value turnovers a lot. And you win games by having the ball more. He's going to give up more yards than a lockdown corner, but he's also going to get a ton more turnovers. Deron Bland might have got more interceptions this year than Sauce Gardner will get in his career, just because he doesn't get targeted as much. But that's a ton of turnovers. That's a ton of extra possessions that your offense is getting.
Yeah. Any other major thoughts on the corners? There's a couple we haven't mentioned, like Travis Ward, I think is sneakily really good. Michael Carter from the Jets, L'Jarius Sneed from the Titans, DJ Reed, another Jets guy. So yeah, any major thoughts that wrap us up here?
I'm just a little surprised you didn't have Marshawn Lattimore on your list, but other than that, it's pretty cut and dry, I think.
He's just outside of it. Another guy that's just outside of it that I think could jump in this year is Brian Branch. I love Brian Branch.
Yeah. Depends where you play him though. He's like just a joker
Yeah,
wide
he's a
open field.
Swiss Army
You
knife.
play him
Like it.
everywhere. So yeah, I do like Brian Branch a lot.
It is safety time, fellas. Let's move over to the safeties where, spoiler alerts, you're seeing the graphic right now. There is no difference at the top, as there shouldn't be. I'm glad that there isn't because it's unfortunately for everyone who's not a Ravens fan, and doesn't have to. I mean, we have to listen to one guy in our life, just constantly push this narrative, but it's unfortunately true. Kyle Hamilton has just absolutely exploded last season, and it's you can make the case for Antoine Winfield, and I do want to make the case a little bit, but Glover, here's the floor. Just talk about Kyle Hamilton.
I was gonna say, like, if we didn't have the same one, we were gonna have some problems, man. It was gonna be a long safety part if we didn't have the same number one there. But I mean, it was just such a crazy breakout year for him. He played everywhere. He played snaps at like every position. He had 3 sacks, he had 4 picks, he had a forced fumble, 13 pass defenses last year, 81 total tackles. Like it was, he shouldn't have fallen in the draft. He fell because he had a slow 40 time, and teams missed out on someone who was like, especially in a weaker class, which was that draft class, the 2022 draft class. He should have been a top five pick. He was a top five talent in that class. And the fact that he slipped that far, I'm thankful. I'm thankful the Ravens didn't pass on him because he's just so dominant. It was nice to see the breakout year because the rookie year was good, but it was like nothing crazy. It was just like a solid year. He borderline top 10 kind of guy. And then this past year, just through the roof. He just did everything. He played safety, corner, nickel, slot, linebacker, rushed the passer. It didn't matter. He did it all so well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
can't really argue
That
that. I will say to not to have the conversation. Um, Winfield does do stuff better than Hamilton, but just Hamilton does so much and can do everything basically. And he is a better ball hawk. He has more range. I will say Winfield's a bit better, stepping up. Um, Even rushing the passer. Uh, like I think Winfield can make more plays on ball carriers, but I think Hamilton's versatility plus being able to defend the pass a little bit better, I think gives Hamilton the edge. But I don't I think these guys are in a tier as well
Yeah.
by themselves. Just for every position we've done, it's like these top two guys. But I mean, Frosty, do you have any big thoughts on Winfield Hamilton in this debate?
I, I think the only real argument that Winfield has over Kyle Hamilton is run defense.
Yeah.
He's probably the best run stopping safety in the NFL. But I have Hamilton one the same reason I have Micah Parsons one. They do everything,
Yeah.
and I think that's what sets him ahead of Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, like the numbers totally back that Winfield's a better tackler. Like when he's making a play on the ball carrier forces more fumbles, makes more tackles and whatnot. It's just the coverage. Hamilton just locks it down wherever he's playing in the secondary.
Yeah, it's not like Winfield's a slouch
Oh,
when with range. It's just his range is a bit more limited. However, he did have a career high in interceptions
yeah.
this season, which was still short of Hamilton. So that's the safety. You guys both have Jesse Bates at 3, which I do not mind at all. I think that's fine. I mean, big boost for this Atlanta team. They needed him desperately. Interesting. So, Frosty, you left Derwin James off the list because he's a receiver now, right? The Chargers are
Obviously,
the
yeah.
Chargers are bringing him on offense.
He almost made my receiver list actually. He could be the receiver one at this point this year.
So
For the Chargers, yeah.
let's start with that. Is there what made you take Derwin off the list? Because I mean, Glover, you have him at 4. He would certainly be in my top 10.
Uh, it's he hasn't really been able to stay on the field a ton. Hasn't played 1,000 snaps. He's played 1,000 snaps once since 2018. He's coming off a down year last year. This Chargers team as a whole is going to take some hits. Their defense hasn't performed as well as they should have based off of the names that are on that defense for a couple years now, I don't think. And there comes to a point where Derwin James, talent wise, is an incredible player, and he's undoubtedly a top 10 safety. But I don't think the way that he's playing and the amount that he's on the field, I can't say he's a top 10 player, a top 10 safety, say.
I think the biggest problem is just the fact that it's so tough for Derwin James in this LA defense because he's forced to do so much in coverage. They've got good pass rushers. That's been the strength with the two edge rushers in Bosa and Mac, but the secondary's always been a big weakness for them. He's never really had a great safety partner. The secondary, I mean, right now it's Asante Samuel Jr., who's solid, but besides that, they really don't have much. And it's been that way the past couple of seasons. We've just been forced to be the only one making plays after the catch on this defense. And I still think the talent is unreal. Like he's just the physicality he plays with. He's probably the hardest hitting safety in the league. The way the video of him lifting and body slamming Travis Kelce. You take some serious strength to do stuff like that, and he does the same sort of thing. He rushes the passer solid. But he's really good at making plays after the catch and on ball carriers.
Yeah, he's pretty versatile too. I feel
Yeah.
like they move him around quite a bit. Like other than Hamilton, I'm not sure who else really moves around like him. Like maybe like a Minka Fitzpatrick to some degree, but I mean,
Yeah, that was the big thing Baltimore talked about when they drafted Hamilton is they thought about taking Derwin James that the year he was drafted and they knew he was such an elite talent, they passed on him. And the next year they're like, what the hell are we thinking? We can't do this again. And then they drafted Hamilton. There's a lot of similarities between the way they play, especially early in their careers.
yeah, I agree. I agree. All right. Any other like strong thoughts? Like there's definitely some differences you guys have here. A lot of interchanging towards the back end here. Like I do want to highlight Javon Holland just because he's Canadian. I mean, he really took a step up last year, and I mean, he could honestly make a case for being one of the 3 best safeties in the NFL if you don't already think that. Um, any like major thoughts? There are some differences I see. You guys have a mixture of players. Any Like Frosty, do you have are you planting your flag in anything? Are you anything about this whole safety group that you want to mention?
Uh, I mean, this might be again, this might be a little bit of Cowboys bias, but Malik Hooker has like transformed since he came to Dallas from Indy. He has been unbelievable. He's been over the last 3 seasons a bona fide top 10 safety. He's I I can't, especially with the guys, the type of corners that Dallas has, the boomer bust guys, the Trayvon Diggs and the Deron Bland, they get beat over the top. And it's on Malik Hooker to make the tackles. It's on Malik Hooker to make those, to break up passes and keep guys from getting 95-yard touchdowns every single time they get beat over the top. And having a guy that's learned to be as reliable as Malik Hooker is in the volatile secondary that is the Cowboys, I think is a massive improvement from what he was in Indy. And I think he's for sure a top. I might, looking at it again, I might not have him quite as high, but I do think he's a for sure top 10 safety.
Yeah, I don't know. I obviously you watch him more than I do, but I can't get behind that high of a ranking for a guy like Lee Cooker because like it is simply looking at it from a numbers perspective, it's just not there. Like the production just isn't quite there for a lot of these elite safeties that I've got above them. Because I got a couple of guys I left on the list that I would still probably like over Hook. I don't think he comes pretty close for me. But yeah, I was a little shocking for me. The other one I want like Reed Blankenship. What again? Another guy you see twice a year. What are your thoughts on Reed Blankenship?
It, well, he never, if he's healthy, he never comes off the field. First of all,
Yeah.
this guy is literally an energizer bunny. It's unbelievable. Nine forced incompletions, three interceptions, and he's going to be a third year player. Like I just think he can continually get better and better and better every single year. And I think this is the year that he takes the big jump and gets into this top 10, which is why I have him there over guys like Justin Simmons.
That is fair enough. He took a massive jump last year. Like he was really good for that Eagles team.
He was one of the
It's,
bright spots in a bad secondary, to be honest.
yeah,
Like their corners were bad. So yeah, I thought he was a bright spot.
Yeah, he did pick up a lot of the slack that was left on that defense. I think though,
Oh,
I think it's gonna be interesting him with CJ Gardner Johnson this year because Gardner Johnson plays a different way than Blankenship, and he is more of a ball hawking safety. I'll be interested to see how they pair up because I think that should be a great duo.
I will say after like the top five, like I mean, I would I hold Hamilton, Winfield, Bates, Holland, and Fitzpatrick in a higher regard, just me personally. But then after that, I just feel like there's a lot of just volatility and based on who did what last year and who's been hurt. Like for Malik Hooker and Blankenship, like yeah, those guys are in Xavier McKinney, the Buda Baker, who I mean Buda Baker on a better team coming up in this Cardinals. I mean, he could easily cement himself as a I mean the like this guy could be a top five guy, Buda Baker.
Rudiger
And
was a top five guy.
exactly. And now we're not even like I'm just barely mentioning him as a top 10. So even like guys like, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, like these are some other guys who can make some noise. If they have better years, they're decently young. So any other major thoughts? I mean, I see you got Simmons in there, Glover. Do you want to make the case a little bit? Because that a little out of left field.
It is, but he's been so consistent for so many years that he's so old. He's just old reliable. It feels like at the same position. He's always been that top tier guy, and I think this year playing in a better defense with a lot more support with AJ Terrell and a better pass rush, and he's got Jesse Bates across from him. I think he's going to be in for another good year. I mean, 2 years ago he led the league in interceptions. He had six interceptions. He's been on the second team All Pro 3 straight years, 4 of the last 5 years. Like I think he's just really underrated. I think he just does so much well on a crappy defense, and nobody really talks about him that much. So I had to shout him out. And you were mentioning guys that you think could make the jump. And maybe this is my bias coming through, but I think if healthy, Marcus Williams, he's had trouble staying on the field since he got to Baltimore, which is a big problem. But as a ball hawk, he's really good. So if he can stay on the field, it'd be nice to see if he can rise up on this list if he's healthy this season.
Right on, right on. So That's basically it. I would say that's a nice way to end it. The defense is definitely a lot. It was weird. Like just as I didn't even notice it as we were going through. It's just like kind of these top two guys at every position that, and then and then it's the rest. So I wonder if it'll continue to stay like that, or if, an injury or two knocks one of those guys out, and other guys take big steps. That's what we'll all find out starting next week, right? We are right on the home stretch. So before that, we keep an eye out. Notice there was no rookies on this, even though we were doing a little projecting. We're gonna be doing a whole awards episode where we'll go through the offensive and defensive rookies as well as with our MVP picks and everything else you can get awarded in the NFL. So, uh, anything to wrap up this defensive episode? It was probably gonna be a bit shorter than the offense.
Yeah, I definitely like, but I think it's a lot more, feels a lot more cut and dry, a lot more consensus in most parts. It's not as like controversial as looking at, top tier quarterbacks because
Yes.
at the end of the day, it is also harder to evaluate defensive players because system, people around them, teams they're on, who they're playing against, the roles they play, it all plays so much more into effect. And the defense is so much more fluid in that way, where we talked about at the start with Micah Parsons, he plays everywhere. All these guys play all over the field, and it is tougher to rank them because you can't just go and look at, yeah, he had 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, and that's a great year. Like you can't, you got to look deeper than just the baseline numbers for these guys.
Yeah, it's and I think defense, I think even more so than offense, once you get past that like upper echelon of guys that are like the bona fide one of one guys for the position, there's so many guys that you can justify putting in tons of different spots on these lists.
Yeah.
Right on then. Well, that will do it. Yeah, keep an eye out for our awards predictions episode. Got some fantasy stuff cooking up as well. Should I reveal what we're doing or that we're gonna try to do? Maybe we'll keep it in the back
We'll
pocket.
keep the bag while it's still in
We're
planning.
figuring some stuff out on
Yeah.
We're trying.
We're doing our best.
We think it'll be a cool idea if we're able to pull it
Yeah.
off. But yeah, we're yeah. All right. Well, I'll leave it there. That's how you podcast, right? You gotta want
That's
our plenty fans wanting more. So thank you for watching. If you liked hearing us talk about what we talked about, drop a like. It would mean everything to help us continue to put out good content. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe as well if you really liked it. And thanks for watching and keep it buzzing.